Hey, this is What Charles. I'm showing you how to make Blackmagic RAW footage look like it's shot on film. First, you open up DaVinci Resolve, you go into the Media tab, and you find your source footage. So I'm taking this and drag it to the timeline, but this timeline is not 3x2, and I've been shooting in 3x2 because I got the full frame. So over here in metadata, you can see that this footage is 6048 by 4032. I'm going to set the timeline to that. And we're ready to OK that. And now our timeline actually matches what our footage is. Now that we have this in order, I'm just going to the color tab. And the first thing I want to do is I want to set this into DaVinci Wide Gamut. So I'm going to do a color space transform from the effects tab, and then I'm going to Alt S to add a new serial node, and then Alt drag from the first to the second. So this is going to be my input color space transform. This is going to be my output color space transform. And most of the work I do here is going to be between this first color space transform and this second color space transform. So I'm going to set this. The input should be wide gamut, whatever's newest, because this is one of the newest cameras that Blackmagic has made. So the input will be whatever your camera is, and the output will be DaVinci Wide Gamut and DaVinci Intermediate. That's for the input node. For the output node, your input color space in gamma will be DaVinci Intermediate and Wide Gamut. And depending on if you're doing HDR or just regular, you should have it set for the output color space in gamma to be Rec 709, and either Rec 709 again or Gamma 2.4. I'm going to do Gamma 2.4, but you'll notice that the difference between them is not very large. In fact, it looks the same. So now that we have these settings set, we can look at this footage and see it looks slightly overexposed. So I'm going to go to camera raw settings and bring the exposure down slightly. And you can see over here, it fits within, it's not perfect. So I'm going to set the black level lower. And this already looks pretty good, fairly filmic, but I'm going to put on some balance. So that's just the first node I did, although what I usually do is I have an exposure node first, and then I do the color balance second. So this is pretty much what I want it to look like. The blacks are a little low here, but for me, that's fine. So for this first node, right before we convert it back to Rec 709, for this first one, I'm putting film grain. For the second one, I'm putting elation. But I don't like to have it too heavy. So over here, and when you turn the threshold down, the halation is far more visible. I'm going to have it fairly weak, but slightly noticeable. And something you might also want to mess with is the secondary glow, which just makes it look a little more vintage. Definitely over here in the film grain node, you're going to want to set it close to what the actual sensor size of your camera is what I usually do. So it doesn't look overwhelming, but you can almost subconsciously tell it's there. So if you look at the sky, I always look at the sky. You can see. Now it looks smooth, straight out of camera. And that little bit of grain, that's what I'm going for. So I just keep it at one of these presets. But I'm going to do 400T because I'm pretty sure the higher the number, the larger the grains. I'm going to keep messing with this and the settings to try to get something I really like. So one thing I really like to do is I like to make the sky look bluer. So I'm going to add a node and go over here, make sure your picker is selected, and go to hue versus hue. And what I'm going to do is set that so it's going to a blue that I like. And I could even do this. Go to the color warper, and the higher the number, the more precise it is. So if I have it here, I could bring the hue to something different. I could make this sky look a little pink if I wanted to. Also, something I just noticed, make sure your stuff is out of proxies. You're gonna get much more accurate readings of what you're actually doing if it's out of proxy mode. So one thing I see over here is this looks a little too bright over here. So what I'm going to do is do hue versus luma. I'm going to bring that down a little bit, see if it does anything. I think it makes the brick building look a lot more natural when I bring it down. So before all these edits, it looks like this. After, it looks like that. The sky does look a little unnaturally colored, so I'm gonna keep messing with that. So I'm going to add something at the very end here. I'm going to go to LUTs, I'm going to go to film looks. I'm gonna find something Rec 709. And something that doesn't do too much, although I'm going to turn down kind of how much it affects the image anyway. Go over to key, whatever this is called, key input, key output, bring it pretty far down where it's just hardly doing something. And we can see before everything, after. And it is 6K footage, so my computer is chugging. I want this little area to be more orange. So what I can do is add another node before. Find this color in the picker. I can grab it. Move it around some. And I'm thinking I might want a bit more saturation back. Maybe drop the luma. Something you can also do is you can grab a still, and now in your gallery you have the still that you can bring in a different clip to. So like for instance, this one is pretty similar. I can bring in that clip. I can put that in the edit tab. What I can do is go to this clip, do apply grade with a right click, and it looks like this. If I actually deactivate everything between the CSTs, and if I deactivate the LUT, it looks like this. What we can see here is Alt D, Alt D, and yeah, now it looks kind of like this. A little vintage, but that yellow definitely pops. If you learned anything from this tutorial, let me know in the comments. Have a nice day. Goodbye.